So all I can say about this is it had to happen at some point or another. This is The Strangers, Chapter 1. Uncle Bill here from DeadPit Radio, deadpit.com, Into the Dead Pit, all that. And talking about a film that is I've heard several different versions of what this film is from the people who made it themselves. It's either a reboot, a reimagining, or a straight up re-franchising. And it is basically a pretty close adaptation of the first Strangers film. What you're looking at is, a remake in the vein of like, not necessarily like Psycho where it's shot for shot, but pretty darn close to what the original The Strangers was. So in this one, you've got a couple, um, played by Madeleine Petch and Troy Gutierrez, who are Jeff and Maya, and they go into a town. This is a story that's been told a million times. They go into a town, small town. They're trying to get away from the city, find a place in the country. On their way through, they visit this really small town to get some food, and during that time, their car breaks down. And the locals are not that hospitable, really. Like they go into a diner, and the locals are just kind of eyeballing them. Richard Brake is one of the locals who's the sheriff, who, I'm sure will turn up in another one of these films if I was guessing, because Richard Brake is an expert at playing crazy, and he's done it multiple times in Rob Zombie's films. So I'm assuming he's going to be part of this for the long run. And oh, by the way, did I mention that this film is just a part of a trilogy that they're making? Everything's a trilogy now, by the way. The Exorcist series was a trilogy. All these new movies that they're putting out are trilogies, like they're all connected to something. The Halloween franchise was a trilogy, that reimagining. So that's become the new thing to do. And this is chapter 1 of the new trilogy of The Strangers. So anyway, Maya and Jeff are out in the middle of the, countryside, and their car breaks down. And when their car breaks down, a couple of the locals offer to help fix the car, but there's, at least Jeff is not too sure if this guy is up to speed. And, you know, uh, it's kind of your typical Deliverance style looking guys. So you can kind of understand that, I guess, like, guys from our neck of the woods. So they agree to let him fix the car. In the process of doing that, they have to stay at an Airbnb, which you wouldn't think that an Airbnb would exist in a place that small, but maybe it has a purpose. Anyway, they go stay at the Airbnb. And from that point on, they are terrorized by a group of 3 masked strangers who are hell bent on exacting some sort of torture. That really is it. Um, like there's not much more of a plot to the film. The rest of the film, once they hit the cabin, is just them like slowly discovering that there are people in the house with them, and also then trying to get away from those people. And chaos kind of happens around them. Uh, and that's kind of the plot of the film, much like The Strangers, the original The Strangers. It was not a plot heavy film. It was more of a emotion tension driven film. And so is this one. And directed by Renny Harlin. Renny Harlin has quite the career. If people are not familiar with Mr. Harlin, then he directed Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Cutthroat Island, which that's probably one he would like to forget about. He directed Cliffhanger, all the way up until, now he's directed many, many, many films. That Deep Blue Sea is another one that people recognize. He's pretty notorious for like action sequences and big kind of like action sequences and things like that too. He also directed Die Hard too. So he's known for those kind of things, but that's not this film at all. There's not like big action sequences. There's a lot of fights and tension and stalking and things like that, as there was in the original The Strangers, but not a lot of like huge action setups or anything like that. Going through some of the things about the film, The only thing as I was watching the film that I couldn't help but think was, why? Like, why? I mean, it's a serviceable enough film, right? It's a fine film. It's got a good cast, especially the female lead who plays Maya. Um, it looks really good. It's shot well. Um, but why? Like, why remake this film now and almost remake it exactly? There's even a scene in this where, they're tied up and the girl asks the question that's asked in the first film where it's like, "Why are you doing this to us?" And one of the masked women says, "Because you were here." And it's like, that's I mean, the original line from the original Strangers was, "Because you were home." And it's like, why what are we doing? Like, why remake this film almost exactly and just change some of the iconic stuff in it around a little bit? Is it just like to reintroduce people to these characters that may not have seen the original and then they're gonna do this new trilogy? Because it's a very I won't say it's pointless, but it's an exercise in futility in my mind to do a film like this because number 1, you're not gonna do it any better than the first one. And they didn't. And number 2, and I don't even care for the first one that much, like, but I mean, they didn't top it with this one or anything. Number 2, you know, you've got so much more resources at your disposal now. The technology's come so far, but, not a lot happens in the film that's like I said, the camera work is fine, but, not there's not a lot of action sequences in the film that are, like, great or notable. The way they go about just, one killer has a knife, one killer has, like, a machete. I just feel like we've seen all of this before in a million other films, and, like, many of those films did this much better. Um, and the look of the film is very, very modern and very, like, slick, like overly produced almost, which I that's also Renny Harlin's kind of MO as well. So I guess that makes sense. If you like Renny Harlin films and you dug The Strangers, like the original film, like if you're a really big fan of The Strangers, you will love this movie. Um, so yeah, there's that. And to talk about the actual release, it's out now. So you can go pick it up if you so choose to. There are some creepy scenes in it. I don't want to say everything about it is bad because it's not. Um, it's just not my style of movie, and I had trouble like figuring out like what the purpose of making the film was. But there's a great scene where Maya plays piano, and like they've got some great shots of the killers like over the person's shoulder in mirrors and like kind of lurking through the house, and there's some really good cinematography, which is a really good selling point for the movie too. This version of the film that's out right now, The Strangers Chapter 1 from, I believe Lionsgate released this, um, comes with the audio commentary with the producer, Courtney Solomon, the actress, Madeleine Petsch, which she's great. She's by far the best part of the movie. I did not care for the guy that was the male lead. I felt like his acting seemed very, very forced and very wooden in a lot of places, but she was amazing in it. Also, reimagining a classic, Making the Strangers Chapter 1. I watched this part of this documentary. It's really good. It kind of talks about, like, it's a lot of Renny Harlin talking about, like, what made him want to do the film and how he came about the actors and actresses for it. A hostile environment, the visual effects design of The Strangers Chapter 1. That's another good little, like, documentary talking about, like, how they designed some of the shots in the film and the way that it looks. I gotta say, like, although the cinematography of the film looks great, some of the sets were very setty. And by that I mean you could, when you were looking at them, you can definitely tell they were a set. I don't know like whose responsibility that was, but it takes you out of the movie a little bit when you're looking at something, and you can obviously tell that was just set up like a couple hours ago. So, but that being said, The Strangers Chapter 1, if this is your cup of tea, go out and get this. It's worth a watch, definitely for, some of the acting, some of the the kill scenes, as well as just the overall kind of understanding that this is going to be a trilogy. So, this is the beginning, and you got to follow through until we get to the end. But I'm Uncle Bill. Check us out over at deadpit.com. And until then, stay safe and stay dead.
Give us the thumbs up.
Up your butt.
Like, subscribe. And if you subscribe, here's something else you can do. Once you subscribe, you can click the bell notification, right? And it'll notify you anytime that Dead Pit puts up new shit.
Or don't. I really don't give a fuck.
I want you to. I want you to.
I don't care.
Let's keep our community growing here on YouTube.
I don't like it. I don't want you to do nothing.
Listen, they need to do that.
No, don't you dare touch it.
Thumbs up. Subscribe. And click that bell.
There's all kinds of wonderful shirts over at shop.deadpit.com. Simply the best horror shirts. On TeePublic, there are others, but they all suck. You can get some Dead Pit Radio shirts. You can get Last South on the left. The Hills Have Eyes. Texas Chainsaw. Oh, wait, you can't say Texas Chainsaw. All kinds of shirts, folks. You're gonna love them. Shop.deadpit.com.
Thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon. Dead Pit on Patreon.com is the only place to check out a complete archive of the old Dead Pit radio shows all the way back from 2005 on, in addition to the midweek shows, fan commentaries, exclusive podcasts, and much more. Dead Pit on Patreon.com if you're interested. Tiers start at only $1.